Everything happened very fast. The golden machine started to spin. A beautiful, warm light filled the room. It was brighter than the sun, but it did not hurt Tom's eyes. The light hit the shadow robots. They did not break, but their red eyes turned blue. They stopped fighting and started to clean the floor. The bad code was gone. Victor looked at his hands. His metal eye fell off. He didn't look scary anymore. He looked like a tired old man. "The light," Victor whispered. "It is so warm." The light didn't stay in the factory. It went up through the broken roof and into the sky. It traveled across the mountains, through the forests, and into the cities. All the old, dirty factories stopped working. Clean, free energy was everywhere. The return home. Chip stood up. He looked new and shiny. "The Sky Factory is working again, Tom. The world is safe." "Will you stay here, Chip?" Tom asked sadly. He liked the little robot very much. "Yes," Chip said. "I am the guardian of the factory, but you can visit me any time. The Cloud Bike is yours." Maya looked at Tom and smiled. "We did it, Tom! We are heroes!" The crash wasn't as violent as Oliver expected. The silver wing slid across a field of soft white sand. When the engine finally died, the silence was incredible. It was a silence so deep that Oliver could hear his own blood pumping in his ears. They opened the door and stepped out. They weren't in the mountains anymore. They were in a valley where the grass was a bright, glowing purple, and the sky was a deep indigo, even though it was the middle of the day. "Welcome to the Valley of Echoes," Aris said, his voice full of wonder. The first echo. As they started walking, Oliver felt a strange sensation. He felt like someone was walking behind him. He turned around, but there was no one. "Oliver, help me." He froze. The voice sounded exactly like his mother, who had passed away years ago. "Don't listen." Sarah grabbed his arm. "Put on your goggles and turn on the white noise machine. It's the valley playing tricks on your mind." Oliver quickly put on his equipment. The white noise in his ears helped him focus. He looked at the map. According to the symbols, they had to find the Stone of Reflection before the sunset. "Why before sunset?" Aris asked. "Because at night the echoes become solid. They aren't just voices anymore. They become shadows that can touch you. We need to find shelter." The crystal stream. They reached a small stream. The water was as clear as glass, but it was flowing upwards toward the top of a small hill. "This place defies all laws of physics," Sarah muttered, checking her compass. Her normal compass was spinning in circles, useless. Only Oliver's golden compass was steady. To cross the stream, they had to jump over floating stones. Oliver went first. As he jumped, he saw his own reflection in the water. But his reflection wasn't jumping. It was sitting in the National Museum, cleaning a statue. "Is that my life?" he wondered. "Is that what I'm supposed to be doing?" He almost slipped, but Sarah caught him just in time. "Focus, museum boy. We have a job to do." They climbed the hill where the water was flowing. At the top, they found a cave. The entrance was shaped like a giant ear. "The Cave of Memories," Aris said. "The second piece of the puzzle is inside." They stayed in the factory for 2 days. Chip showed them how the machines worked. They ate delicious fruit from the floating gardens. Then it was time to go home. Tom, Maya, and Daisy sat on the Cloud Bike. They waved goodbye to Chip. They flew back over the Silver River, over the Crystal Cave, and over the Forbidden Forest. When they arrived at Green Valley, everyone was waiting for them. Grandpa Peter was standing front of his garage. He had a big smile on his face. "I knew you could do it, Tom," Grandpa Peter said. He hugged Tom and Maya. Life in Green Valley changed. The air was cleaner, and the people were happier. Tom and Maya became best friends. Every weekend they visited the garage to fix old things, and sometimes, on very clear nights, they looked at the blue mountain and saw a small blue light flashing. It was Chip saying hello from the Sky Factory. The air inside the Cave of Memories was cool and smelled like wet stone and ancient lavender. As Oliver, Eris, and Sarah walked deeper, the walls began to glow with a soft, phosphorescent light. These weren't just rocks. They were covered in millions of tiny crystals that reacted to their presence. "Look at the walls," Sarah whispered, pointing her flashlight. "Are those drawings?" Eris stepped closer, touching the surface gently. "They are called living hieroglyphs. They don't just show the past, they change based on who is looking at them." Oliver looked at a section of the wall. At first, he saw the history of the valley, people building great stone towers and singing to the stars. But then the images shifted. He saw his own childhood, his first day at school, the day he found his first old map in the attic, and the face of his grandfather. "The cave is reading our minds," Eris warned. "It wants to keep us here by showing us things we love. We must stay focused on the mission. Oliver, what does the compass say?" Oliver looked at the golden compass. The blue needle was now pointing toward the floor. In the center of the cave, there was a circular altar made of black obsidian. There were 3 empty slots on the altar. "This is the heart of the mechanism. The compass is the first key. We need 2 more, the prism of truth and the chronos gear. According to my father's notes, the prism is hidden in the Chamber of Silences at the end of this tunnel." The Chamber of Silences. The walk to the chamber was difficult. The tunnel became very narrow, and the whispers grew louder. Even with their white noise machines, they could hear the voices. It wasn't just words anymore. It was music, laughter, and sometimes the sound of a ticking clock. "I feel so heavy," muttered Sarah. "Every step feels like I'm walking through honey." "That's because time is thicker here," said Eris. "A minute in this cave could be an hour outside. We have to hurry." They finally reached a large, perfectly square room. In the middle of the room, floating in the air, was a triangular crystal. It was the prism of truth. However, there was a problem. The floor was covered in hundreds of identical crystals. "It's a trap," Sarah said, stopping at the entrance. "If we touch the wrong one, what happens?" "The echoes will trap us in a loop of our own memories," Eris replied. "Oliver, you have the compass. It sees through the illusions." Oliver stepped forward. He felt terrified. He looked at hundreds of crystals. They all looked the same. He held the compass high. The blue light of the needle shot out and hit one specific crystal in the corner. That crystal didn't reflect the light. It absorbed it. "That's the one!" Oliver shouted. He walked carefully across the room. He felt the voices trying to distract him. They told him he was just a simple museum worker, that he wasn't a hero, and that he should go back to his dusty basement. But Oliver didn't listen. He grabbed the prism. Suddenly, the room stopped shaking. The voices disappeared. The Shadow's arrival. As they walked back to the main altar, the atmosphere changed. The sun had set outside the cave. The indigo sky was replaced by a terrifying blackness. "We're too late," Eris whispered, looking toward the cave entrance. Shadows began to flow into the cave like black smoke. They didn't have faces, but they had the shapes of humans. They were the echoes of regret. They were the people who had stayed too long in the valley and lost their physical bodies. "Don't let them touch you," Sarah yelled, pulling out a flare gun. She fired a bright red light into the shadows. The shadows jumped back, but they didn't disappear. They were waiting. "Oliver, put the compass and the prism into the altar," Eris commanded. Oliver ran to the black obsidian table. He placed the golden compass in the first slot and the prism of truth in the second. A beam of white light shot from the altar and hit the ceiling. The light created a barrier that the shadows could not cross. "We are safe for now," Sarah said, sitting on the floor. "But we are trapped. The shadows are waiting outside, and we still don't have the third key, the Chronos gear." A night of stories. Since they couldn't leave until morning, they decided to share their stories. Sarah talked about her life as a pilot and why she loved the sky. Eris talked about the mistakes he made in his career. "And you, Oliver?" Eris asked. "Why did you really come here? It wasn't just for the museum, was it?" Oliver looked at the glowing altar. "I felt like I was sleeping," he said quietly. "My life was the same every day. I was surrounded by history, but I wasn't making any of my own. I came here to find out if I am more than just a man who cleans statues." "You are definitely more than that now," Sarah smiled. "You just saved us from the Chamber of Silences." In the middle of the night, while Sarah and Eris were sleeping, Oliver heard a new sound. It wasn't a whisper, it was a mechanical tick-tock. He looked at the altar. The white light was pulsing. He realized that the third key wasn't somewhere else in the valley. It was hidden inside the cave, but in a different layer of time. He stood up and walked toward the back of the cave, where the light of the altar didn't reach. There he saw a small door that wasn't there before. On the door there was a sign, "The Workshop of the Clockmaker." The moment the third key was placed, the clicking stopped. All the clocks in the workshop, all the whispers in the cave, and even the shadows became perfectly still. A pulse of blue energy exploded from the altar. It wasn't a violent explosion, but a wave of clarity. The shadows didn't scream, they simply dissolved into light. The echoes of regret were being released. Oliver saw faces in the light, the people who had been trapped for centuries. They looked peaceful as they faded away. The cave of memories began to transform. The walls shifted, and the narrow tunnel expanded into a massive hall. The three keys, the compass, the prism, and the gear, merged together to form a glowing orb of light. "It's working," Eris whispered, standing up and dusting off his jacket. "The valley is resetting." "Look!" Sarah pointed toward the cave entrance. The black night was gone. Outside, the indigo sky was filled with thousands of shooting stars. The purple grass was glowing brighter than ever. The Valley of Echoes was no longer a trap. It was a sanctuary. The choice of the traveler. The clockwork sentinel walked out of the workshop and stood before the trio. "You have fixed the rhythm of this place," the sentinel said. "The bridge between the past and the future is open. You can stay here and learn the secrets of time. You will never grow old. You will have all the knowledge of history." Oliver looked tempted. For an archaeologist, this was paradise. Sarah looked at the glowing sky, her eyes full of wonder. "And if we leave?" Oliver asked. "If you leave, you return to your world. People will not believe your story. You will return to your museum, your plane, and your books. But you will carry the blue light in your hearts. You will know that time is not a prison, but a gift." Oliver looked at Sarah and Eris. He realized that the adventure wasn't about the gold or the magic. It was about the fact that they did it together. "I want to go home," Oliver said. "I want to take what I learned and live a real life. I don't want to be a statue in a beautiful valley." Sarah nodded. "I have a plane to fix, and I think I've had enough of magic for one lifetime." Eris sighed, but he smiled. "You're right, Oliver. A story is no good if you don't return home to tell it." The return. The sentinel raised his hand. The orb of light on the altar grew larger, surrounding them in a warm blue glow. Oliver felt like he was floating.
The smells of the workshop faded, replaced by the smell of rain and old books. Click-clack, tick-tock. Oliver opened his eyes. He was sitting on the floor of the National Museum's basement. The rain was still hitting the window. In front of him was the wooden box from Peru. "Was it a dream?" he whispered. He looked down his hands. They were dirty and scratched. He reached into his pocket and felt something cold. He pulled it out. It was a small copper gear. It wasn't glowing, but it was perfectly made. "Oliver, are you still down there?" a voice called from the stairs. It was Professor Arris. He looked exactly the same, but when he saw Oliver, he stopped. He looked at Oliver's scratched hands and the copper gear. Then he looked at his own wrist. He was wearing a new watch, one that Oliver hadn't seen before. "The plane is being repaired," Arris whispered with a wink. "Sarah says we leave for Egypt in 2 weeks. There is a map of a sunken city that we need to discuss." Oliver smiled and stood up. He wasn't a quiet museum worker anymore. He was a traveler, and he knew exactly how much every second was worth. Oliver pushed the small wooden door. It didn't creak. Instead, it made a clicking sound, like a lock opening. As he stepped inside, the temperature changed. It wasn't cold like the cave. It was warm and smelled of hot oil, polished brass, and old parchment. The room was incredible. Thousands of clocks covered the walls, grandfather clocks, pocket watches, and strange mechanical devices Oliver couldn't name. Some clocks were moving fast, their hands spinning like fans. Others moved so slowly that the hands seemed frozen. "You are early," a voice said. Oliver jumped. Sitting at a large wooden desk in the corner was a figure. At first, Oliver thought it was an old man, but as the figure moved into the light, he saw the truth. The figure was a clockwork sentinel. His skin was made of thin copper plates, and his eyes were glowing blue lenses, similar to the needle of the golden compass. "I am the keeper of the gears," the sentinel said, his voice sounding like a soft vibration. "I have been waiting for someone to find the secret door for 300 years, or perhaps it has only been 3 minutes. Time is difficult here." "I need the Chronos gear," Oliver said, trying to keep his voice steady. "My friends are in danger. The shadows are attacking." "The Chronos gear is the heart of this valley," the sentinel replied, standing up. He was very tall, and his body made a rhythmic tick-tock sound. "It is not a gift, it is a responsibility. To take it, you must solve the final paradox." The trial of the 3 pendulums. The sentinel led Oliver to the center of the workshop. 3 large pendulums hung from the ceiling. One was made of gold, one of silver, and one of rusted iron. "The golden pendulum represents the future you desire. The silver pendulum represents the past you regret, and the iron pendulum represents the present, the difficult now. The gear is hidden inside one of them. If you choose the gold, you will live in a perfect dream forever, but your friends will be lost. If you choose the silver, you can change your past, but you will never have found this valley. If you choose the iron, you take the gear and face the shadows, but your life will remain difficult and uncertain." Oliver looked at the gold. He saw a version of himself that was famous and rich. He looked at the silver. He saw his mother again, alive and smiling. His heart ached. He wanted to reach out and touch the silver light. But then he heard a scream from outside the door. It was Sarah. "The barrier is breaking!" Arris shouted from the cave. "Oliver, hurry!" Oliver didn't stop. He dove through the shadows, feeling their icy cold touch on his skin. It felt like his life energy was being pulled out of him. He reached the obsidian altar and pushed the chronosphere into the final slot.